Hi gang, welcome to this week's video lecture. Our topic this week is evaluation and control. Last week we talked about implementation and the disturbing fact that as many as 70% of strategic plans actually fail. And it fails at the implementation phase, where generally companies will develop a good strategy, but the hard part is implementing. And that's where, so if you have poor implementation and a good strategy, you'll fail. And of course, if you have a poor strategy, whether your implementation is strong or not, you'll also fail. So we're going to look today at how we make sure that we have a greater chance of success. And that's at the point of looking at how we measure and control the implementation phase. So far in the course, we've done environmental scanning, we've looked at strategy formulation and strategy implementation, and that evaluation and control stage is today's topic. One needs to be able to develop a strategy that can be cascaded through the entire corporation. So for large corporations, you'll have overall direction of the company is set by corporate management. Each of the different business units, they can be strategic business units or they can be other types of organizations, they also will have a strategy, but it has to tie back into the corporate strategy. And functional strategies, the different departments, also then have to tie back in ultimately to the corporate strategy. Now, at that business unit level, it can be a strategic business unit, but it can be within the company, standard cost centers or revenue centers like sales, expense centers, administrative functions. All of them can work as independent units, but working towards the collective goals of the organization. So we have to tie them in. And evaluation and control is the way that we do that. It's the process by which corporate activities and performance results are monitored so that actual performance can be compared with desired performance. And you see the very simple model for it, really for any kind of process where you have inputs, in this case, a strategic plan, you implement it, and then you have outputs, which are your achievements. After implementation, you feed back on how well you achieved it, and you can make adjustments. A different way of thinking of it is in terms of steps. First, we determine what to measure. We establish the standards that we want to meet. We then measure whether or not we met them. If we've met our standards, then we don't have to do anything more. But if we haven't met our standards, we're going to have to take corrective action, and we go back and measure performance again. We make changes to the process, and we measure our progress again. Now, in doing that kind of performance measures, there are different ways of looking at it, and they're used for different circumstances. Output controls are ones that specify what you've accomplished, and it really focuses on the end result. So something like a sales quota or cost reduction objectives. Think of it, we were to make sales of $40 million this year. That's the end of the process, output control. Behavior controls are quite different. That's when we specify how something's done by having policies and rules and standards. So those kinds of operating policies and orders from supervisors. And then we say whether or not the staff have exhibited the behaviors that we wanted to see. And the third way is through input controls, where we specify the type and characteristics of the resources. So we can do that, say with raw materials, where we might want to specify a particular grade of a raw material. Or when we're hiring somebody, we can say we want a person with a certain number of years of experience or certain diploma or degree. They aren't interchangeable. It depends on the particular process or control mechanism, which one will work, and others that might have rather a low reliability. Now, primary measures of corporate performance. What's the end result that we want? Ultimately, financial success. And so financial measures are extremely important. Return on investment, earnings per share, return on equity, operating free cash flow. And the kinds of measures that the accounting people and finance people are very comfortable with, but we know that they really don't tell us the whole story of the organization. When we think of the BSG simulation, you have four measures that are financial right now, and one that's a non-financial measure. So it's a bit biased in terms of finance, in terms of your performance. And one of the ways the companies have tried to rebalance it is by using something called the balanced scorecard, which has been around now for about 25 years, where we combine financial metrics and we look at operational metrics, and we focus on four areas now. So finance, which is important, customer, how do customers view us, internal business perspective, what are we good at and what are our processes like, and then innovation and learning. Can we continue to improve and create value? So management develops goals or objectives in each of the four areas. And it's important because we found through studies that non-financial assets explain 50 to 80% of a firm's value. Now, the sorts of measures that are used are on this table. You can see them for customers and suppliers. There's the financial community and employees and so on. I'm going to ask you to use that information and to try to create a balanced scorecard for your BSG company. So if you go to the download for this week, the assignment 9, you'll see that the first question asks you to develop a balanced scorecard where you look at not just financial, but potentially customer satisfaction, internal processes, and innovation and improvement. And you're going to try and tie those in with specific objectives that could be set for the company. I recommend that you turn off this video for now, work on that assignment, and when you come back, we'll look at the second half of this lesson. So now we're going to look at some of the other controls that we can have in place to try and improve performance. Companies have strategic information systems now, and it's important in terms of what kind of rules should we follow when we set up a strategic information system. Well, the controls should involve only the minimum amount of information we need. They should monitor only meaningful activities and results. They should control should be timely so that you can take action quickly before it's too late. You should have both long-term and short-term goals. Control should aim at pinpointing exceptions, the things that we can change, and emphasize the rewards of meeting and exceeding standards rather than punishing people for failing to meet the standards. Those are some good guidelines to follow for the kinds of controls that you put in place. Enterprise resource planning, or ERP systems, are very important in large businesses now, where they unite all of the company's major business activities within a single family of software modules. And it provides instant access to everybody in the organization. We know that people can't keep track of what's going on unless they have proper communication systems. So it's challenging and costly to implement these types of systems, but it's almost always worth the effort. Now, there are some systems that are built for smaller companies, but in particular, large and multinational companies use them so that they can share the information all over the world. The leading ERP provider today is a company called SAP, a German company. I've given you a link there that you can go and examine the company if you aren't familiar with them already. There are some other tools that are very useful for management in monitoring and controlling activities. Benchmarking is the continual process of measuring products, services, and practices against the toughest competitors or those companies that are recognized as industry leaders. And the concept was pioneered by Xerox in North America. It's really about openly learning about how other firms do things and how they do things better than you do, but to go beyond imitating and try to improve upon their techniques. It's now considered the most widely used management tool, And I'm sure you all have heard of reverse engineering, companies that take a good idea and improve on it. And of course, Apple has been a fabulous company for doing that. When it comes to benchmarking, some steps to go through: identify the areas or processes to be examined, find the behavioral or output measures, and obtain metrics for your own company. Then select an accessible set of competitors or a best-in-class company against which to benchmark, and calculate the differences between your measures, your performance, and those of your competitors. Find out where the differences exist and try to understand why. And then you develop tactical programs to close those performance gaps. You'll implement the programs, compare the results. Over time, the organization will become more effective. Within BSG Online, there are a number of benchmarking reports that are available. I'll let you examine those, always on the left-hand side, looking at the industry and comparing against your company's results. So your assignment, the second part of it, is to benchmark against the leading BSG company. You've seen several companies excel in the BSG simulation already within your industry. I want you to launch the BSG company and access the company decision history pages, which you'll see on the left-hand side, and review the performance of the leading company. So see who is the leading company in your industry and identify one way you could copy or improve upon the decisions that your company has made by learning from the leading company in all of the 6 categories: compensation and training, production facilities, inventory clearance, wholesale marketing, private label production, and celebrity. So you can examine all of those different categories. Each of them is a separate page, and see how you could improve upon your performance and note it on the sheet. I suggest that you stop the video now and complete question 2 on the assignment sheet. Next week, we'll be looking at corporate governance and some of the issues surrounding ethical behavior of companies. But really now we've gone through the entire process, the strategic management model, beginning with the environmental scanning of external opportunities and threats and internal strengths and weaknesses. We've worked through strategy formulation, implementation, and today, evaluation and controls. That is the process of developing and implementing strategy. You'll be working on the last round of the BSG simulation this week, and then you will be developing your final report, which is no longer a presentation, but a written report, and submitting it into the Conestoga folder. Your assignment today, I've set up a spot in the assignments folder for you to submit that as well. You can submit it anytime up until Friday at 6 p.m., and I will accept it, and I'll post a grade for you in the Conestoga. Hope all is well. Take care now.